Let's build an insane $4,000 Evangelion themed purple gaming PC for my ex-boyfriend. I designed this PC build around the Asus Maximus Z690 Hero Eva motherboard, which he had been holding onto for a while. It's part of an Evangelion line of PC components Asus did a couple years ago, which featured a matching cooler, case, GPU, PSU, monitor, router, and even peripherals. But he only had the motherboard. Asus actually did come out with a second line of these in red as well, called the Eva02 line, which has just as many themed components. Anyways, this is an Intel board and it does support Intel 12th, 13th, and 14th gen CPUs, but he is my ex, so I got him the 13900K, which is known for instability issues.
That is a disgusting act.
Initially, I paired this with a white set of 32GB DDR5 Trident Z RAM, but the white really stands out with this build and I don't think it looks good. It kind of throws off the whole thing. So I ended up switching that for a Corsair Vengeance 32GB set, which has the RGB strip on the top that can be changed to match the theme. And I'm also going with the trusty dusty Acer Predator GM7000 2TB SSD. This motherboard is so pretty and honestly, this lighting does not do it justice at all. I really wish more companies would do colorful motherboards like this. I know we've done builds with the ASRock Live Mixer series, but I'm really hoping someone comes out with a pink themed motherboard because I know the girlies would eat that up. And before we throw everything into the case, we can't forget that cooler bracket. Today we're using the Tri-X Panorama 360mm liquid cooler, which has a super cool AMOLED display on it, since this is a bit of an overkill build. Tri-X actually did send this cooler out for review when they first came out with these, and they have since launched a newer, less expensive version of these called the Tri-X Panorama SE, but this is gonna look sick with the Y70 touchscreen. Also, can we talk about the details on the back of the motherboard? I'm honestly not sure who is ever gonna see this unless you have some kind of open air case, but it's nice that they pay attention to the details. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. You might be wondering why the case is purple. It's actually the black Y70 Touch Infinite, which I painted purple to match the Evangelion theme, just using some automotive paint for durability since these cases tend to get banged up one way or another, so normal spray paint might chip off. Now let's get everything installed into this case. All right, for the actual elephant in the room and for some top secret PG Tech lore, I dated this guy for like a year or two, but we ultimately decided to break up because he was hard stuck ascendant in Valorant. All jokes aside, sometimes things just don't quite work out, and there's nothing wrong with that. I had promised him a PC build for a super duper long time. Like, I think by the time I did this build, we were on Intel 14th gen, but I had promised him around 12th gen, so it was 2 generations later. And then last year, he did end up getting a Y70 Touch, so I was inspired to actually finish this build. And I didn't get around to editing the long form until now. So if you follow me on short form video, you've probably already seen this build before. Anyways, now that we've got the lore out of the way and installed the motherboard and everything into the case, I got some purple cable extensions to keep everything on theme. I am installing them now. I like to install the EPS cables at least before installing the cooler, just because in certain cases, once you install the AIO, it's super duper hard to install the cables. Although with the Y70 Touch, the case is so big, you probably don't run into that issue, but you know, just in case, I just like to install them now. These cable extensions came with 2 different types of cable combs, but I felt like the transparent ones were cooler, so I kept them for myself. Just kidding. I also had to pick up 3 additional fans to fill out the case. The Y70 Touch doesn't come with any side fans, so I was originally just gonna toss the AIO radiator into that side gap, but the Y70 is so giant, it's gonna look so empty on top and you'll see all the cables if I do that. So these are the Corsair IQ fans, which conveniently connect without cables, which is great because I freaking hate cable management, which you guys have probably noticed. So you just stick these like plastic little things in them, and that's just to keep them aligned. I know with some magnetic fans, it's just magnets, but those, once you screw them in, sometimes there's some problems with the connections, or like if you bump the case or you're shipping it anywhere, it becomes disconnected. Unfortunately, I could not get the reverse blade fans. I ended up actually like door dashing these because I was on a bit of a time crunch. So it is a little bit ugly, but oh well. These IQ fans are great because if you get the whole IQ Link system or just more than 1 pack of fans, they all connect to this nice hub using this USB-C like connector. It's not really USB-C, but it's just more streamlined. So I am installing these to intake on the side. Like I said, it is a bit ugly because you can see the back of the fans, but I think it's better than having the side be exhaust and the top radiator being intake, because if you intake with the AIO, then you're basically just pulling in a bunch of super hot air into your PC, which is not the best. And for the power supply for this build, I've been holding on to this crazy 1200 watt power supply from NZXT, and it actually has the connectors for 2 12 watt high power cables, but we won't actually be using either for this build since the GPU we have uses 8-pin connectors. I'm just gonna go ahead and plug in the cables we need and install it into the case fan side out. Alright, now it's time to install that Tri-X AIO. It does come with the fans pre-installed, but I actually wanted the tubes to go on the right side instead of the left, so I had to uninstall the fans anyways and reinstall them on the other direction to hide the cables. Honestly, I don't think there's a good reason for wanting the tubes that way. Just aesthetically, I feel like it just looks better. And I guess if you were to install a back fan, the way that it is right now, it would actually block that. It honestly is just preference though. It is great that the cooler comes with the fans pre-installed, but because I had to flip it, and by the way, depending on like whether you're mounting it in the side or the top, you might also need to flip it too. That's why I do hope that in the future iterations of the Tri-X panorama, they hide the cables better so you don't have to do that. I've seen some AIOs where the cables are, I don't know, somehow just connected in between the fans, so whichever way you flip it, you don't have to worry about the cables. Just installing that radiator onto the top of the Y70 case, and then it's time to actually install the pump onto the CPU. This AIO actually comes with the thermal paste pre-applied, and that LCD actually pops off, so you can remove that whole thing. It just pops off magnetically so you can screw it on more easily, and that actually reveals a cute little fan underneath. Not all AIOs have this, but it does help to keep the motherboard VRMs cool. And when you're installing this, just remember to tighten the screws in an X shape, so not in a circle, I guess, because you want the pressure to be applied evenly throughout it. So tighten it slowly, not all the way at once, and in an X shape, if that makes sense. And then once that's done, you can just pop that screen back on, and the wires do connect to the screen, so we'll have to manage that later. I also was planning to put this little LCD onto the back where the fan normally goes, but the LCD that I have actually looks comically small in this freaking massive, ginormous Y70 case. I mean, this case is cool, but for me personally, with limited desk space, I would never get anything this big. So I did end up taking the screen out just because it looks so silly. Now that everything else is installed for the GPU, we're using the Gigabyte Radeon RX 7900 XTX. At the time, it was, I think, the best AMD card that was available, and it's powered by two 8-pin connectors. Originally, I was being lazy and I just used the stock PSU cables because I figured you wouldn't be able to see it with the vertical GPU mount, but I actually don't like it. So I decided to stop being lazy, and for those GPU power supply cables, I actually like to cut down the 24-pin cable combs down so it actually looks like one set of cables instead of two separate ones. So I just cut those with some wire cutters or like nail clippers if you don't have those. But yeah, let's get those cable combs installed, and this just makes the build look so much cleaner and more professional. It does take a couple minutes, but it does make a world of a difference, and as someone who likes to pride myself in aesthetics, I figured we can't skimp out on this no matter who the PC is for. If you notice, the IEC for this power supply actually looks different because I think it's like a server grade one and it's not the one that you normally see with gaming PCs. So it would be so funny if I just kept this because he would probably have such a hard time finding the right plug. But I'm not actually that evil. And in fact, I'm actually so nice that I even flashed the BIOS for him so the Intel chip wouldn't fry itself. I might just be the GOAT. Anyways, here's what the PC looks like with everything powered on and all the lights turned on. The Y70 Touch does look super cool. We've got so many screens on here. It's really just missing the Lanley fans with the screen on it. And with that Tri-X cooler, you actually can split the screen so you can show two different GIFs and you can show different like performance and stats and everything, but you can also just show like one GIF wrapped around the whole thing, which is pretty cool. And with the motherboard lit up, you can see some more of the details that Asus put on this, and it actually looks so freaking sick, you guys. It's not my normal aesthetic, but I low-key cooked with this. And the purple Y70 actually looks really nice too. It is pretty subtle. It's definitely not as bright as the Taro Milk that they have out, but I think it looks nice. Thanks for hanging out with me, you guys. Let me know what you guys think about this build in the comments. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, subscribe for more aesthetic PC builds.